Hi friends, today is your chance to go from crocheter to Tunisian crocheter. So we are going to do Tunisian crochet today from the absolute beginning. So you need some worsted weight yarn, and the yarn I'm using today is Paint Box Yarn Simply Aran. There's a link in the description below if you would like to purchase this yarn. This is the color 253. So doesn't cost you any more, but it does give me a kickback. Okay, so we're making a slip knot. So if you're already a crocheter, but you're ready to go to Tunisian crochet, you're going to need a Tunisian hook, which is a hook that is longer than a traditional hook if you want your project to be anything longer than maybe 3 inches. So the length of the hook matters in Tunisian crochet, and it's easier to have a hook that does not have a thumb rest. So, the thumb rest is the flat squat part of the hook. It's better to have a hook that has the same diameter the entire length. So that's what is different about the Tunisian or Afghan hook. So this one is about 10 inches long or so, and I don't plan on doing a project that is wider than this plus a third. So maybe I could squeeze 15 inches onto this, but it probably would get a little bit crowded. So I have today a size 10. That's a US 6.0 millimeter hook. So I think this is a J in US terms. I like to use a Tunisian hook that is generally bigger than the yarn I would normally want, that I would normally use for the hook. So with a worsted weight hook, I would normally use a size H or I hook, and instead I'm going to bump up to a little bit of a thicker hook. And here come my kitty cat friends, in case you're wondering. They are crowding around, so I got both Theo and Muffin here. But okay, now let's get to the program. All right, so if you're already a crocheter, you probably already know how to make a slip knot, but let's go ahead and do a slip knot again here. So I have my cut tail of my yarn, and I fold it over. The cut tail here is in my hand over here. I take the yarn and thread it between my middle finger and thumb up over my index finger. Give it maybe an extra 3 inches down here. Here's still the cut tail. I'm going to take this cut tail and put it in this triangular space here next to my loop. So I'm pinching my loop. Put it through there, grab it from the back so that it is wrapped around my thumb here, and take this tail and put the tail through my thumb, okay? So that I now have a slip knot, which is a knot that slips easily, and I'm placing that on my hook. I have my hook in my dominant hand. I have the tension for, let's see, I guess I need to pull up a little bit. The tension hand is over here. So I'm going to wrap the yarn just like I do for regular crochet around my palm, and then I stick up my index finger and we go from there. So, oh my gosh. How do I do this? There we go. I forgot there for a second. Okay, so I lay the yarn across your palm and then squeeze it with your pinky little finger and stick up your index finger, and that it's going to wrap around away from yourself. Okay, you can tension the yarn any way you want that works for you. This is what works for me. So my pinky finger here is really doing all of the work. It is holding the tension of the yarn. And then this also gives me some tension, and this space here gives me some space to grab. So I have my slip knot on my hook. To make a basic chain, I'm sticking my hook as if hit that joint there on my middle finger, hit it and slide past. And that's how I am grabbing and pulling the yarn down and through the loop that is on the hook. So we have the slip knot there, and now we have one stitch. Each stitch is made of 3 pieces, and just like with traditional crochet. So hit your middle finger with the hook and push it through there and grab it and pull it through. So hit away from you and then pull it down through. So there's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now with Tunisian crochet, the number of chains you make is the exact number of stitches you will have. So unlike regular traditional crochet where you have to like factor in how many stitches are going to be for the turning chain, you're not doing that with Tunisian. So if I chain 10 stitches, I will have 10 stitches. I will not have 9 or 8 or whatever. So the number of chains you make is the number of stitches you will have. So you know here with this traditional chain here, you can see 2 loops for each stitch. So if I isolate 1 stitch between my thumbs there, this is 1 stitch. It's made up of 2 loops on the top plus 1 little back ridge, back bump, back loop thing here on the back. So each stitch is made of 3 strands, 2 strands on the top and 1 strand that is a bump on the back. Okay. So Tunisian crochet, in the first loop that is on the hook, that counts as the first stitch. It counts as the first stitch for this first chain next to the hook. So we're going to ignore this first chain because the first loop is already there on our hook. I like to use the back ridge, back bar, back bump. So if I rotate my chains toward me and put these top 2 V-shaped or heart-shaped little loops of the second stitch down, I can find the back bump here. So I'm going to insert my hook under it, pushing the hook away from me under that back bar, back loop, back ridge, whatever you want to call it. Again, hitting my finger with my hook and sliding it away, and then grabbing the yarn and pulling up the loop through the stitch, but leaving it on the hook. So I now have 2 loops on my hook, and I had 2 chains taken care of now. So now I'm going to advance to the next one. I'm going to do the same thing. So the top 2 strands of that chain, I'm kind of rotating them to the floor. I find the back ridge, back bump, whatever you want to call it. Slide your hook under that back ridge, kind of touch your middle finger there, your tension hand, and rotate up to grab that yarn and pull it through just the stitch there, not through any loops that are on your hook. So you're adding a new loop onto your hook with each chain across. So we will continue to do this all the way across and not do the slip knot at the end. So we are just grabbing a loop and pulling it up, grabbing a loop and pulling it up, grabbing a loop and pulling it up. Yes, you can grab the loop through like one of the V's or one of the strands plus the back ridge if you want, that is more comfortable for you, but this makes a nice pretty edging. So now on this, and I'll show you in a moment, and when we get to this last stitch, you can feel the knot there. That is right before the last bump. So make sure you get the last bump and that knot feels like a knot. So you know not to even try to put anything there. Now we can count our stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Perfect. And when I rotate up the bottom, I still see that beautiful little line of chains. That's why we do the back ridge, back bar, back bump, because then we have this beautiful little tidy edge at the bottom. Okay, so what I just did by pulling up loops is called the forward pass. I went forward through the loop and grabbed all the loops. I loaded up my hook, and now I'm going to return pass to take the loops off. So each row in Tunisian consists of the 2 actions. You have to do the forward pass of picking up loops, and you have to do the return pass of pulling the loops off. Those 2 items together are 1 row. Okay, so it's also called, it might be called a bind off on the second row, but that would be incorrect terminology because we are not like finishing off the final row. So we have done a forward pass, and now we're going to do a return pass. Okay, so in general, always in general, always, because that's the fun part about Tunisian and any kind of crochet pattern, is that because there is an exception to every rule, that is what makes things so fun. So in general, when you do a return pass, you're going to yarn over. So again, hit your middle finger with that hook, push it to the back, yarn over, pull through just one loop, okay, for the first one that makes this edge along this side, this left side. Then we will yarn over again and pull through 2 loops this time, one here on the hook and the next one on the hook, leaving the remaining ones there. So after we yarned over and did just one on the very first, all the rest of the loops are yarn over and pull through 2 loops on the hook, 1 and 2 and stop. Then yarn over and pull through 1 and 2 and stop. So come up a little closer here. Yarn over and pull through 1 and 2, but stop. Yarn over, pull through 1 and 2, but not anymore. Yarn over and pull through 1 and 2. So this is the often called the foundation row for Tunisian crochet. And then when we get here to the final one, we're still yarning over and pulling through 1 and 2, and then we just have 1 left, and so we're done. Okay, so that completes row 1. Often in Tunisian patterns, you will have this foundation row first, and then your pattern begins from here. Your pattern doesn't usually start right away on the chains. It usually starts after 1 complete forward pass and 1 complete return pass. So, my goodness, this is going to make your life so much more fun, because if you haven't tried Tunisian crochet, it's going to open a world of possibilities to you. And all of my Tunisian videos now, you are hopefully less intimidated to do. Now, the second row, this loop that's on our hook will count. Well, okay, let's look at the anatomy here real quick. I'm going to take my hook out for just a moment. So what happens is we have the anatomy of the Tunisian crochet, which is these vertical lines here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Those are vertical bars. Now, the chains that are in between the vertical bars, so the chain here, the chain here, the chain here, those are considered horizontal bars. Those are the bars that go across. So for Tunisian simple stitch, what we're going to do today, we're going to pick up the vertical bar. Okay, and that's just this like front piece here. Okay, that's what we're going to be working with in a moment. Now the back side of this is going to look different. It looks more like purl bumps in knitting. You can see kind of that the vertical bar kind of goes up and over like an arch. It goes up the front, and then you can see the little back leg down here of where it went all the way up and over, and this chain came through. These chains came through. So we are going to stay on the surface and just do here, but other stitches, be aware, will actually stab through the fabric and split those front bar and its little leg on the back side of the rainbow, and split that, and that would be Tunisian knit stitch. So I just want to show you the anatomy of the Tunisian foundation before we go on. Okay, let's go on. So add your hook back in, tension up your yarn. We are going, and the reason I use a bigger hook than the yarn normally would want is because Tunisian can be a very dense pattern. And so this helps it get more drape and be a little less tight on our hands. So we have the first loop on the hook that corresponds with the first stitch or the first vertical bar. So we do not need to do anything with that. And oftentimes Tunisian patterns will say skip the first vertical bar, and that means this edge piece right here. Skip that one. So then the next one is this one here. So we're going to isolate that, get a good look at it, and pull up a vertical bar, or pull up a loop in this vertical bar. So I'm going to not worry about my working yarn yet. I'm going to insert my hook and stay very much on the surface. So from right to left, I'm inserting my hook under that vertical bar. Now, if you're watching this left-handed version, you're going the other, whether it's right or left, follow what you see on the screen. So you are pushing toward your tension hand underneath that vertical bar. So again, touch your middle finger if you need to understand where you need to go with the hook. And then you'll yarn over and pull that yarn just through that front loop, that front vertical bar. That is called a Tunisian simple stitch. It's the most simple stitch in Tunisian. So we're going to do this all the way across. So we're going to put the head of the hook away from our dominant hand toward our tension hand. Touch that middle finger if you need to, so that you go underneath that yarn, pull the yarn through just that loop, and pull up a loop and leave it there. So we're just adding a stitch by pulling up a loop in each of these vertical bars across. And every time you add a stitch, you're adding it to the working loops that are on the hook. Because there are loops that are on the hook, my hand on the hook is tensioned a little bit differently than what if I were like crocheting traditional. So my hand is a little bit further back often on the hook. And then also you do have to touch those stitches sometimes. So that's a little bit of a different feel for you. Tunisian simple and up. Tunisian simple and up. Okay, so we are getting all the way to the end of the row, and then the last stitch is just a little tricky, but once you get it, it's no big deal. So we've got the last vertical bar that is easy to find. And then on this last stitch, we are going to pick up 2 bars. So if you kind of turn it toward you, there's actually 2 little strands here. And this will actually make a sort of, I guess you would say, chain running up the side. So you can feel the knot here from your beginning chains. And then directly above that, you can see 2 strands right there, 1, 2. That's where you're going to put your hook. So when it says Tunisian, and generally, when you have even an ornate Tunisian stitch pattern, it will say to Tunisian simple stitch in the last stitch. And that's what this means. So even if you have a fancy stitch pattern, you're still probably going to do it exactly this way for this last one. So let's put this down. I am going to kind of turn it toward me a little bit and make sure I pick up 1, 2 strands there for that Tunisian simple stitch. And then yarn over and pull up a loop. So again, how many stitches should you have? The same number of chains that you started with. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now, one of the arguments about Tunisian crochet is it tends to curve or curl, and that's because we're constantly pulling yarn toward the front of the fabric. We're not turning at all. So we've not turned at all, and we're not going to. And by pulling up loops to the front of the fabric, it creates this tension, like a person who's just been like punched in the stomach and you kind of curl. Then this is kind of what happens when you load up. Or, okay, think about putting a heavy backpack on. If you put a heavy backpack on, I should have told you how to do this again. Let me go back. If you put a heavy backpack on, your shoulders are going to curl. I'm backing up so that you can see because I forgot. Okay, so here we are. If you put a heavy backpack on, you're going to hunch over like and hunch toward away from the backpack. You're going to hunch toward your stomach. And that's kind of what happens with Tunisian crochet and Wyatt curls. Okay, so we're ready to, we just did the forward pass of pulling up loops of simple Tunisian simple stitch, and it's time to return pass, pulling off the loops. And so we will do the exact same thing we did before. We're going to yarn over and pull through one loop on the hook. Then we are going to yarn over but pull through how many? 1, 2 loops on the hook. Yarn over and pull through 1, 2 loops on the hook. And this is the traditional return pass. Of course, if you have a special pattern that tells you to work more stitches off or more loops or whatever, then that's how it gets fun. That's how it gets different. That's how we have variety. But we're yarning over and pulling through 2 loops on the hook all the way across until only 1 loop remains on the hook. Okay, let's do this again. So remember that this loop that is on the hook counts for this edge chain here. So you can count rows, row 1, row 2. You can see the chain working up the side. This is row 1, this is row 2. So the number of chains working up the side is the number of rows that you have done. So if we skip this one here because we already have one, we are going to Tunisian simple in the next vertical bar. Okay, working on the next vertical bar all the way up. I think once you get the hang of it, you will find Tunisian crochet to be super, super addictive because you can't just stop at half a row. You don't want to just stop in a forward pass with the loops all on the hook. You want to return them off and then you're like, oh, but just one more row. Okay, as we get all the way to the end here, when we do this again, we kind of turn it towards us. We can see that we need to grab 1, 2 loops on the side of the piece so that it makes this chain up the side. So we're grabbing, kind of pushing in between there and just pulling up a loop. And this is what it looks like right here. This is, so, okay. All right. And then remember, we do the return pass with a yarn over, pull through 1, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, all the way across. All right. What happens if you make a mistake and you need to rip out a row? Okay. All right. So, okay, say we have 1, 2, 3 rows complete, but I made a mistake on row 3, and so I want to rip it out. I'm going to remove my hook from that live loop. I'm going to put it in the next row down, or whatever row. If I want to go all the way back to here, I would put it in here. If I want to go back all the way to the beginning, I would put it in this chain. But I'm going to put it right here just to rip out 1 row. Anchor it here, and then go ahead and pull out. And you can see the anatomy of the piece as the chain undoes all of those loops. So we are pulling out the return pass, and now we need to go back and pull out the forward pass. And your hook is there to hold it tight so you don't accidentally pull back too much. And you can go back and do this row again correctly if you found that you made a mistake. So Tunisian simple stitch all the way across, and then after this row I will show you 1 or 2 of the traditional bind offs, or the final rows that cap it off so that you don't have any live stitches. Okay, yarn over, pull through 1, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, all the way across until there is just 1 loop remaining on your hook. Yay, you've made it so far. Congratulations. Go back and watch. Pause it if you need to. All right. So binding off, we're only going to do a forward pass. We are going to basically traditional crochet it. And we're only going to do a forward pass so that we don't have to do a return pass. In general, the bind off of Tunisian crochet is in pattern. So whatever you were doing for the body, you try to do that to cap it off so that it stays similar as much as possible. So I am going to, since we were just pulling up a loop and I have one loop here on the hook, I'm going to go ahead and insert my hook the same way I had been, as if to Tunisian simple stitch. I'm going to go ahead and pull my loop through that fabric, but also through the loop on the hook. So it binds it off that final loop. And now I still only have one. So Tunisian simple, as if to Tunisian simple stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, pull it through the fabric and through the loop on the hook. Okay, so insert your hook as if to Tunisian simple, pull the yarn through that fabric and through the loop on the hook. So you're only having one loop on the hook each time because you are binding off the previous loop onto the current loop so that they are all tied together in a neat, beautiful little package. Okay. If you've made it all the way through this video, thank you so much. Please like and subscribe. When we get all the way to the final stitch, we're going to make sure and grab both of those strands along the side. We will pull up a loop and pull it through the loop on the hook, and we will fasten off from here. Cut the tail, put the cut tail through the loop where the hook had been, and pull snugly. And this is our 3 beautiful rows of Tunisian simple stitch. If you like this extreme beginner lesson, please let me know with a comment below. If you have, oh, here's, let's see the back. The back looks like purl bumps. So you know that you are doing it right. All right, see you next time. So if you liked this video, here's another one that's similar that you might also enjoy. And here is the video, the last video that was uploaded in case you missed it. Everyone, please like and subscribe.